But now I don't see those cobbles and curbs. I don't hear the blues anymore.
Rough Trade is giving away a third of the first 3 months of the Rough Trade Club plus new music membership exclusively to 101 Part-Time Jobs listeners. Become a member of Rough Trade Club New Music and you'll receive the Rough Trade Album of the Month straight to your door every month on exclusive vinyl pressing with exclusive bonus material. Club members have received exclusive pressings of albums from Sufjan Stevens, Sprints, The Last Dinner Party, Julie Byrne and Over Mono, just to name a few, this past year alone. Sign up using the promo code CLUB101POD and you'll get the Rough Trade Album of the Month, English Teacher's excellent debut album, This Could Be Texas, on exclusive Galaxy Gold for a third of the usual price. Here's English Teacher on a recent episode of 101.
How many opportunities do you get to write a debut album and have all of this, sport behind us? I don't know, I really like the idea of holding the bar as being like classic songs.
You only get one shot at a debut.
Don't want the album of the month but still want all the benefits? Sign up to the standard tier using Club 101 Pod and you'll still get the first month free. You'll also get free shipping on all orders, 10% off the bar and on secondhand vinyl in store, and exclusive access to sold out Rough Trade events. So don't hang around. Go to roughtrade.com/club and sign up with the code CLUB101POD. That's CLUB101POD and claim money off the album of the month, English Teachers This Could Be Texas, today. This offer's available to UK residents only. Do you play in bands? I did for the longest time. And I wish that I knew that DistroKid was a thing. I don't even think it existed back then. DistroKid makes music distribution fun and easy with unlimited uploads, and artists keep 100% of your royalties and earnings. 1 million plus artists rely on DistroKid to get their music on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, TikTok, Tidal, Instagram, and all the major streaming services. When you get DistroKid, you can see a DistroKid bank and withdraw your earnings. You get notified when you've earned royalties and you can withdraw via the app. And you can even check your streaming stats on Spotify and Apple. Get 30% off your first year on DistroKid by going to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. 30% off for your first year. That's not bad. We know it's a tough world out there. Why don't you make it easier for yourself? And to get 30% off that free year as an artist, where you get 100% of your royalties and earnings, go to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. All right, stay with me. I'll be right back after this.
It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woohooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver? I kind of like the high five, but if you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. At ChumbaCasino.com, choose from hundreds of social casino style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses. So don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
All right, you're listening to 101 Part-Time Jobs with me, Giles Bidder. It's the place where I ask people who rock and roll how they do it. It can get pretty damn tough out there, but one of the people who makes it look way easy, styles it out with dignity and grace, is Justice Tripp of Angel Dust. Angel Dust have just put out a new album called Brand New Soul. It's rocking, it's fun, it's good-spirited. We talk about it here, we talk about the mindset behind the songwriting and the vibe and the feeling that Justice and the rest of the band are going through with this album. He tells some memories of Trapped Under Ice and their momentous touring schedule, and some of his modelling for Baltimore skateboard and clothing brand Carpet. This chat went way too quickly. I loved speaking with Justice. Angel Dust are on tour in the UK right now. They got Manchester, Glasgow, Blackpool, Newcastle, Liverpool, Sheffield, London, Norwich and Birmingham still to come. So if you can make any of those shows with Powerplant, who we had on the show just recently, and TS Warspite, then you got to do it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for listening. If you like this show, if you like this podcast, if you like what I'm about, you can rate it, you can review it on Apple and Spotify. All that stuff is a massive help to me. That helps me continue get great guests like Justice and other guests we got coming up, which includes Slaughter Beach Dog, Teenage Wrist later this week, Citizen is coming up, the Menzingers, loads of great stuff. So if you want to get notified as and when those come out, click subscribe. Before we get into this chat, I'm here with Rebecca from Eka, multi-instrumentalist, plays piano, plays saxophone, also a brand ambassador for Ampolo, which is a great brand new free app for musicians. All right, Rebecca, could you tell us a little bit about Ampolo?
Yeah, I've been using Ampolo, which is an app that came out earlier this year, actually. Smart with its AI demixing tools. So in under a minute, it will completely demix a track, which means I can take out the drums, the bass, vocals, whatever it is I want to be trying my own part over. Whereas before, I would be Googling chords and then on YouTube Googling the song and kind of flicking between the tabs while setting up my instrument and trying to practice along. It all happens in the app. And then I'm posting it to a feed if I want that social aspect of it, but I don't have to. I've been spending many hours just practicing parts and thinking, wow, this is so easy, play again and again to make sure I nail that bit.
So it's a practice tool, you can film yourself, it's free, it's out there, Ampolo. You can download it today. All right, here's Justice Tripp from Angel Dust.
We got Disco and Brutus. I'm gonna put Disco. I'm gonna close her up because she's eating the squirrels out back right now.
Great names.
Yeah, Disco and Brutus. Brutus is he's just a little guy.
That's brilliant. Hey, so you got kind of two ends of the spectrum there, like Brutus and Disco.
Yeah, but their look is like swapped. Like Disco is the big tough dog, and Brutus is the little cute dog.
Do you go out with them? Do you walk them at the same time?
Yeah, for sure. We have a pretty big yard, so they spend a lot of time in the yard. And then my partner, she walks them every day. She's pretty about that.
Did she or did you both become early risers when you got dogs?
She's an early riser. I have a theory that I'm like, dogs they'll do whatever. Like if whatever you do, they're fine with that. Like, so when she's gone, we all sleep in. Like both of them sleep in bed with us, and they'll just sleep all day until it's time for me to get up and do my thing. Cause I'm a little late. I mean, recently I've been more like 10 a.m. has been my time.
Yeah.
But when I'm like in the creative zone, I'm making music, I wake up at like 1, sometimes 2 p.m.
Wow. I mean, 10 a.m.'s the time. I'm a 9:30, 10 o'clock guy. I used to be a bit embarrassed about it because, I guess I kind of look up to my friends who are kind of 5 a.m., get up and go. And I'm like, maybe I should be a bit more like that. But it's just the way we work, right?
Yeah, it just depends on your lifestyle. Like I'm a creative person. I make music, play venues late at night.
Yeah.
So like the average show, we're like getting out around 1 o'clock and then we're going to drive 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
So my brain is just like used to like settling down at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
When I get in my creative zone, sometimes it's 7, 8 a.m. Like the sun's up.
Wow. Is that when you're at home?
Yeah. I have a little studio downstairs and just go down there for like the night, the whole night.
And you can hear that on Angel Dust stuff from the last, I don't know, for me, it's been like the last 5-6 years, the kind of Angel Dust stuff that you've been releasing. I don't know. I guess I like just made this up in my mind. I was like, oh yeah, you're the guy with the 4-track, or you're the guy with the home studio. This is how these sounds are coming out like this.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, like the last recording we did, like Yak, was with Rob Schnaff, who I think is kind of like a pioneer in like what people, it's interesting because he's not doing anything in his bedroom or, but he just likes samples and incorporating that in rock and roll music. And I think that's some of what the basis of what people call bedroom pop now, or bedroom rock or whatever,
Yeah.
And I learned a lot from him. So like my whole thing was just like, I want to build a studio. I want to do what Rob does. And, it's not quite a bedroom. It's like, it's a little bit more than my bedroom, but I get where that concept comes from. And it's like, it is like that. Like I like samples and putting weird, roomy, small room sounds on a track.
Mm-hmm.
feel really organic and natural, and that like feels what punk feels like to me, you know?
Put the microphone outside to get natural reverb. There's this band that lasted for one album. They probably played like 15 shows, called Gordon Gano's Army. And they were kind of like power pop, yeah, but like kind of a bit Billy Bragg and a bit like jarring as well. And they did their record totally like not like manual, right? I guess like just you did put the microphones outside for the natural reverb. And like this record came out 15 years ago, and the more time goes on, the more like that's a cooler idea. And the way that like a thing like a 4-track or a microphone, that itself becomes the instrument. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And that's a really cool way of thinking about it.
Yeah, man. Like having something that sounds quote unquote bad, you know?
Yeah.
Exactly how you describe it. That becomes the instrument. That's the identity of the song, you know?
Big time.
I like finding new ways of putting together these, again, quote unquote, bad sounds to create just something different from another universe. You know, it's like, I really like on Yak, the record we did with Rob, there's drum sounds that we used at Sunset Sounds, which is like one of the more notorious huge drum rooms in LA, and it has a huge drum room sound. And taking something like that, where the drums sound like the biggest thing in the world, and then taking a mic and sticking it up to the electric guitar with no amp.
Yeah.
And that's what the guitar is going to be for the song. The smallest guitar sound fathomable.
Yeah.
With the big, it's like, what planet does that exist on other than in that exact scenario, and building something kind of unique and fresh to people's ears?
Totally. And look, this isn't even a tenuous link. What we're talking about here is exactly what I want to achieve, or what I want to do with this podcast thing, 101 Part-Time Jobs, is to get the kind of stories about how everyone does shit differently. You know, everyone has their own kind of unique way of doing it, their own mindset. And I've been following you and you know, bands you've been in, and you as an artist for lots of years, and coming from a similar place, grew up wanting to be in punk bands. I saw this band. I grew up on the outskirts of London, saw this band when I was like 12 or 13, and I was like, gotta go on tour, gotta do this. Kind of like messed up school for it because I was just on MySpace booking gigs and had this like unquenchable thirst to just tour and write songs. And I guess the time that becomes like a pretty serious thing in your life, you don't even notice it because you're so used to doing it in a way. But I guess when you get into your 20s, for most people, or say if you leave home at like 16, 17, you know, you realize that you're going to have to kind of come up with some kind of structure so you can carry on playing music. So that's where I'm coming from with all of this, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I know exactly what you mean. I spent a lot of time as a kid being like, oh, this is a fun thing that I can do for fun. And then just didn't want to leave the van, you know, like always looking for like a way to get in the van with another band, or like, you know, early on we'd start bands and didn't even have records out yet, but it was like, let's just get in the van.
Yeah.
And then as you start to play the game a little more, it becomes a little more realistic, you know, like putting out records and somebody wants to press the record and distribute it. Now it's like not that crazy to think you can do this. But I think in every situation, every musician has something they're doing at home, because you can't live your whole life on the road unless you're a complete sociopath. But they exist. Those people definitely do exist.
I think one thing that's interesting is those early tours. I think I heard on that interview you did with Jeremy Bolm, where you were like, I don't even know how we got there. Like, we didn't ask for money. You know, yeah. It's just like money's not even in your brain, in your mind, and like, call it naive, call it whatever. It's an interesting kind of conflict, I guess, that, you know, have those most formative times, those most pure times, and trying to keep that purity, keep that like feeling later on down the line when you think, okay, we kind of have to ask for a fee. You know, we have to have a team around us to keep this going, like logistically.
Yeah.
What's your kind of journey been with that like? I mean, I know, you know, you run the label, Popwig, and that's awesome. I mean, it seems like you're in music, right? If you're going to be in a band, you know, having a label is such a thing that makes sense to do. Obviously, you're bringing in a lot of your own kind of lived experience into that. I I guess my question is, like, over the last like decade, have you become more and more stable in your life as like a musician, like as an artist?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, I don't know. There was a time when I used to go on tour and come back and do security. Security was a thing I did for a long time, and just basically get paid small amounts of money to get my ass whooped.
Wow.
And
how serious are we talking?
How serious of an ass whipping?
Yeah.
I've caught a couple. I've had my nose broke like so many times. And I think maybe twice in context of doing security. And then had my teeth knocked out a lot. My front teeth are like, I have gold teeth in the front. And it's kind of like, it's out of necessity. It's because I've had them knocked out 7 times.
Wow.
So at some point you're just like, what's going to stop this? And gold helps for, whatever reason. So like replacing your teeth regularly and getting your nose fixed and stuff doesn't really work out well when you're like making $100 a night to do security, a couple nights a week when you're home, And
is that something you trained for? Is that something like your mates were doing?
I had some friends that were doing it, and I was just so familiar with everybody at the club from like being there and playing shows there. And then I remember one specific situation that led to me doing security is like a big fight broke out. And in our community, I feel like I knew people well enough, and people knew me well enough that they respected my voice. So a big fight broke out. It's funny. It was like one of like 3 times my mother's ever come to see my band. So my mom's there, and I'm like, hey, everybody chill out. Everybody's got to stop. And everybody kind of stopped and listened to me, And the one security guard was like, hey, how'd you do that? Like, what did you do? And I was like, I just told him to stop. And he's like, why did he listen to you? You're like half my size. And, I was like, yeah, I don't know, dude. That's like, I've known these people since I was a child. And he's like, you want a job? And he's like, I get, he told me a story where he got jumped in a similar situation. And he was like, I could use somebody who can just help, in that way. So
what a great way to get a job.
Yeah. It didn't work out in my favor as much as I would like to, because I feel like I ended up working a lot of hip hop shows where nobody knew who I was. And I'd be like, hey, everybody stop. And they just start beating my ass.
And we talk about Baltimore. What was it like growing up in Baltimore? I know that you kind of grew up with a bit of like a ragtag crew, and you're like friends with some older people. I mean, what kind of opportunities were you given? Like looking back now, at the time, if you'd asked me when I was 18, what are your opportunities now? I'd be like, shut up. But now I'm like, it's interesting to look back and think, okay, what were the few things like in front of my eyes? I guess for me, it was like studying. I think that was the only thing I realistically could do, for the student loan, you know what I mean? But yeah. For you, what was kind of what were your opportunities looking like in Baltimore?
Yeah. It's like the most common thing that people bring up, because it's like the most successful TV show, one of the more successful TV shows of all time is The Wire. And it's like, yeah, I mean, that's like a real thing. It's like the world that the city that I am from is like that on some level, but it's not like that wasn't my life, For me, it was like music and skateboarding and like trying to find ways to express myself really young. Yeah. And I was like kind of fortunate that Baltimore is a city, because it's poor, it has these cool built-in opportunities. When we talk about like New York in the 70s and the 80s, like what made it so cool and so influential, it's because it was poor, and there was like places to facilitate young people doing stupid shit, So where we grew up, there was like weird warehouses and really strange bars. There's a bar I always reference called Cafe Tattoo. When I was a kid, they would let us do anything. And we would just like, we were so attracted to like the extreme side of music. I was thinking of this one scenario in Cafe Tattoo. There was a band called Bad Luck 13 from, I believe, like the Philadelphia, New Jersey area.
Okay.
And they would play Baltimore like every other week when I was a kid, I feel like. And we were all really interested in that. And it was extreme. They would like shoot fireworks into the crowd, and they would like do professional wrestling stuff on each other. And they would like, I remember one occasion there was a severed, I want to say it was a pig head got thrown around. So we like wanted to we thought that was really cool. And some of my friends had a band that was like a similar vibe, and everybody took turns singing. And we would like, so we rented out Cafe Tattoo And it was like, it was like a sick, badass psycho who ran the spot, and he didn't give a shit as long as we didn't start fucking, like really truly fucking his spot up, because then he would, he was like a psycho. You weren't trying to push him too far. But he would let us like do weird shit. And I remember one time we had a gig there, and we like went around with a shopping cart and picked up like TVs and glass bottles and trash. And we like started a big fire in this little, like, it's like a 100 cap like club.
What?
And we just like poured lighter fluid on the ground and started a fire. And then we like beat each other with TVs and did wrestling moves on each other because we wanted to be that,
You were wild.
Yeah, I feel like you couldn't, there's a lot of cities you couldn't do that in, like now Baltimore, it's like that dude, everything's a little tighter financially. So that dude's like, hey, you guys are going to give me $200 and you're going to do what? Fine. Do it, and he would just laugh. And then if we got out of control, he would, I think at that particular time, I think he let the fire go for a couple minutes, and he came with the fire extinguisher and he was like, no more fire. We were like, yes, sir. I think his name was Rick. Cool.
Are you speaking to me from Baltimore? Sorry, I should say Baltimore. Baltimore today. Are you Baltimore right now?
Yeah, that's where I live now. I lived in Los Angeles for about 7 or 8 years, but I've been back here for about a year. It's been really pleasant.
What was it like coming back? Do you bump into some old friends, some old heads? Like, you feel at home there? This is your place?
Absolutely. I have a lot of like great long-term friends that I trust and can depend on. And, I had that in LA too, but it's like some lifelong friendships here that mean a lot to me. And it's been just really a pleasant experience. Also here, it's like in Baltimore, again, talking about like, it's like a little bit cheaper than Los Angeles, a lot of bit cheaper than Los Angeles. So I have like a little yard now, and I can like let my dogs run around, and like something I would never really dream of, having my own yard in Los Angeles.
In brand new soul, that's what it is. It's a brand new soul. You feeling brand new?
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's like within myself, within what I'm seeing in the music community. This is the first record that with Angel Dust that I've produced. And it's like comes with learning production is this freedom to do whatever you want. And, it's like I've had certain ideas that, I don't think anybody was against me. It was like maybe somebody didn't understand in the moment. And like when you can produce your music and you're the boss per se, it's like there's no restriction. There's nobody to have to explain yourself to. Luckily, like I do co-run the label who's putting the music out, So it was sick. It was like no experience I've ever had before, like working with Roadrunner, who's like a big label in the past. Like if you want to try something, you have to get approval from 1, 2, 3, 4 people above you. And it's a process. And, I think they were really good people. I really enjoyed a lot about my time with Roadrunner. But for this, I called one of my best friends, who is Daniel Fang, and was like, hey, man, I want to do this record. I think it's going to cost me like this. And he's like, oh, yeah, it sounds great. Cool. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to book some studio time. Like I have some stuff in my space downstairs, but a lot of what we recorded is a spot called Right Way, which is like very central Baltimore City. And yeah, it was cool. He was just like, okay, cool. Yeah. I'll send you that amount of money, because he kind of does more of the financial stuff, and have fun. It's like, nice. And then called all the team and just had like this grand vision of everybody playing on the record and putting their twist on it. And it's cool. It's the first record that I didn't play like most of the guitars. I think I played like a riff or two on guitar. I got to focus on production and singing. I'm the singer of the band. The
vocals sound great. I mean, a lot of it's fun. A lot of it's like funny and endearing and like good time. It's a good time.
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate that. I think rock and roll music, and but the song kind of touches on like the origins of rock and roll, which sounds like it's funny to sound like a history lesson in the song, but it's not about. I'm not trying to tell a history lesson as much as just explain where I'm coming from. And it's the freedom of rock and roll music that, I think we talk about a lot of music, like that comes from blues and rock and roll, and then hip hop and punk rock, hardcore music. There's a certain thing that exists in that spiritual thing that separates it from everything. And I think that's comes from creative freedom, you know, and to be in a big machine, to work with a big label and a team and all this stuff. It's like, it's really helpful from a business perspective, but it gets harder to focus on the spiritual nature, the freedom of the music side of things when you have all these people to answer to. That's, you know, it's exactly what it means is like, you know, it's a brand new view on doing this band. It's like complete freedom, and just have an incredible team of people who want to do that with me.
I think it can be easy, and I think like it's human nature to take things for granted sometimes, and I feel like that's one of the great pains or the great battles or the great lessons in life, to not take things for granted. I think freedom is likely to be one of those things, and the feeling that I get from you talking about that is that feeling of when I was younger and living in a really small like village where there was nothing to do. So we were like, okay, well, we're going to climb a tree and jump. My friend's uncle wears a motorbike, has a motorbike helmet, and we'll wear this motorbike helmet and jump out the tree just to like have some fun and knock ourselves around, and like building skate ramps, building bike jumps, building a tree house. It's like creating, and that stuff never really goes if you don't want it to. Creating and exploring, do you know what I mean? Like, dude, I love jumping out the tree with the helmet. It's like, I feel like you never do it with a helmet per se, but that's like a thing that kids do where you're exploring your body and what you're capable of, and like, you climb up a tree and you're like, will I survive this? And you jump out. And then if you're fine, you climb up to the next branch and you jump out. You're just constantly pushing yourself. You're like, well, that was okay. So what's the next level up? Yeah. It's like that with music. And I mean, I still jump out of the tree all the time. It's like, you know, you play a new stage and it's bigger and there's more people, and you're like, how far can I jump out off of this stage into the crowd safely, you know? And sometimes it's not safe. You know, it's like I'm getting a little bit older and it hurts worse, but I can't lose that that sense of exploration and that creative freedom to see what wacky thing I can do on stage. And maybe one day I'll hurt myself bad, but I mean, I have hurt myself bad, you know what I mean? But it's like, who cares, man? It's like, I'm gonna fucking die one day. And it's probably not as far away as people think. You know, it's like we all think that we're immortal and we're going to live forever. And it's like, I don't have time to waste. I want to know exactly what my body can do. I want to know what my brain can do. I want to know what my friends can do together when we get in a room and there's microphones. Just have no desire to live an average life.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Part of the job of being like a musician, being an artist, is to like keep growing, because you're going to change, the world's going to change around you. That can be like a pretty tricky path. Have you had moments kind of like veering off into the wilderness of that path? Have you kind of, you know, obviously you are now and you, the space you're in now, but have you kind of had moments where you've gone off that path and had to come back in, or you lose yourself for a bit and you kind of have to catch yourself up? What's your story with that?
That's a great question. I think especially in music where it's evolving so fast, and I'm starting to really see that. Maybe it's always been the case, but I'm starting to recognize it more in like the film industry, you know, where, you know, everything's changing so fast, and it's like, what's right and what's wrong, and what properly represents me and my path, which has led me to a more DIY ethic, interestingly enough. Because, you know, it's like every day I get emails from people. There's somebody from some company who knows they can make me more money, or they can grant me more freedom to do the things I want to do as a musician. And I get what they're doing. They're pitching themselves because they want to be involved, and they are involved with this industry. But I've seen it, what this industry does. You have to know, I started touring when I was 13 years old. So I've been doing this for, 20 plus years, and I'm fully aware of what's happening and how fast it's happening. And to put your faith in somebody just because that's what they want to do. A lot of people get into this industry, like a lot of industries, looking for a living, not because they're super passionate about music. And like, does that make it wrong? I don't know. I can't say. But I do see that the product, the end result is different when you're working with people who are really passionate about music, and particularly the music that you do. And I found very few, to be honest. You know, it's like the people who play my band, obviously, the people who played in my band in the past, the people who play in Trapped Under Ice with me, the people I do Pop Wig with, our booking team. Mm-hmm. It's like, but I don't always feel like everyone's on the same page, which has led me to say, okay, I want to put out our own record. And I like, for better or worse, I manage Angel Dust. And it's like, there's definitely some things I miss, but the things that are important, and I have to make sure they're done right. It's so important. And, like, I've worked with people and like with different managers, and, like I said, with Roadrunner and different labels. And I do think everybody always had the best of intentions, but at the end of the day, it's like, I'm just better suited to do this than a lot of people. And it's kind of scary because I would love to just take a breath and relax. Like, dude, I'm 37 years old. I just went on my first vacation in my adult life. I just got back yesterday.
Like a relaxed vacation.
I've never done that. Like, I've been touring my whole life. So if somebody says like, hey, do you want to go on vacation? Two things. I'm broke and I've just been traveling. You're not going to get me in a car. Like, I have trauma about traveling. When somebody's like, do you want to drive 30 minutes away? Hell no, dog. I'm not on tour. I'm not driving 30 minutes anywhere.
Putting out records when you're a bit younger, it's always like a handshake deal, and it's your buddies. It's like, cool, we're doing this for fun. I've always struggled with that idea of, even now doing this podcast, and I'm trying to hustle it, and I'm trying to become a radio presenter here on like a rock station, and like that idea of doing this thing where we've been putting on gigs and playing gigs where it's free entry or cheap or our whole lives, and then trying to kind of transfer some of those skills over to like a quote unquote like professional career. Like, I feel like in my heart, I feel like it's possible. And I feel like in 20 years, I'm going to be doing something that is music every day. But it's still like, it has its challenges. It has its murky times.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got ins and outs. I have like a thing that I've been kind of preaching, like part of my gospel recently, is just like committing to who you are. It's like, it's like, what do you want to be in life, And it's like, and who deserves to be that more than you? It's like nobody. Like what I'm doing right now, like with music and like being on stage and I always had a problem with being the center of attention. I never wanted to sing in any of our bands. With Angel Dust, I did not want to sing. I was going to be the guitar player. With Trapped Under Ice, I was going to be the guitar player. And it's like, it was like hard for me to even accept that I was the singer then, or like the centerpiece or the focus where people are looking at, writing the words people are hearing. But it's like, at this point, again, I've been touring for over 20 years. It's like, who's more well equipped to do this than me? Like, I'm the one who should be doing this. And it's like, as a kid, dude, it's like I would like watch Guns N' Roses and like imitate Axl Rose. And then when I got into hardcore, really young, I was like, 11, 12, and I started hearing hardcore music. I would draw like tattoos of my favorite singers on my body in the mirror and then pretend like I was them and stuff. It's like, who else has just worshipped this role so long to where it's like, you can't, you have to commit to who you are. And it's like, there was just a point in the last, honestly, it was like a year ago where I was like, I'm a real life rocker. Like nobody gets to judge, tell me, like anybody you can find on planet Earth who's going to tell me I am or am not is wrong. They just don't, they haven't, people I've looked up to. It's like, and you know, just no disrespect to anybody, but I've put in more time than most of the people that I look up to at this point. You know what I'm saying? And then on the business side, it's like business people are going to come in and tell me what's what. I do all the business. Yeah. So you just have to fully commit to who you are. Who do you want to be? And don't have any embarrassment or shame. I think some people are like embarrassed to acknowledge that they want to be successful as a musician or something. It's like, no, dog, you're a musician. That's what you do. That's what you've committed your life to. Don't hold back to make other people comfortable, or you just have to be you. And I think it's like a thing that punk rock teaches us, is to be like unapologetically yourself. But, you know, also within the context of hardcore and punk rock, there's judgment, and people are afraid of judgment. You just gotta let that go and embrace the true idea of rock and roll music. And goes back to the thing I'm talking about with Brand New Soul, you know?
And that's what we want to hear as fans or people going to the gigs and buying the records. Like, we live vicariously through you. You know, when you're putting on that record and you feel that, you know, whatever time of day, it could be the first thing in the morning, like, oh my God, like you're living vicariously through that record, and like also being completely yourself because you're putting the lyrics to that record in the context of your own life. And the point that I'm really getting at here is that, like, we want people in bands to be the most free they can be. You know, there's no job description to you. Like, Lemmy didn't pass a test to be Lemmy. You're not going to set a test for yourself to be you. Like, it's a real game of faith.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look, thanks so much. We got just a few minutes left because I got the cheap version of Zoom. I should have got the more expensive one. But look, I love hearing about these stories of like people messing up at work, especially people playing music. Have a lot of those stories, right? Because you take a job and you go in for that interview and you're like, yeah, I'll be here the last thing at night and I'll be here for the next 10 years. And then 2 weeks later, you're like, I'm going on tour. See you later.
Yeah.
Do any of those memories for you come up? I'm putting you on the spot here a little bit, but what kind of memories like that come to you?
I had 2 jobs that were like pretty full-time while I was touring at points in my life. You know, again, I did security and stuff like that and worked at bars. I bar backed a little bit, but I worked at Johns Hopkins as a maintenance mechanic. So basically the idea would be like working with air conditioning units and stuff like that in the buildings at Johns Hopkins. And there's so many buildings at Johns Hopkins. It's like, you know,
what is Johns Hopkins? Sorry?
University / hospital. But it's the biggest employer in Baltimore now. And I think it's the top medical university in the world. But yeah, I would like go work on AC units or like fix electrical stuff, and which was never really my strongest point, in like labs or something. But that was a tough one because that's when I got a good job, and it was, you know, something that I think the average person would say, okay, this is like good benefits, good money. This is something I should commit to. And I was always looking for a way out. And I had a show in Richmond one day, which in perspective wasn't the biggest deal, but it probably meant a lot to me. And I think the decision to leave work and do it is probably very definitive of who I am. But yeah, they wouldn't let me leave. And I was like, I have to go. I'm really sick. And they weren't buying it. And it was like a stupid lie, but I was like, oh, I'm like faint. I feel like I'm going to pass out. So I like fake passed out in the hallway. And like some lady was screaming. She was like, help! You know, I was like, oh man, I'm so sick. I have to leave. And I left work so I could make it to Richmond on time.
You get you a job in acting.
Yeah. Fully committed to I like passed out. Laying on the floor.
So funny.
And then I was like, yeah, like it's obviously a hazard for me to be here. I got to go. And always had some stupid lie. I like made up a lie once about somebody breaking into my house, and I was like a bad liar. And it was like I was on the spot. So I was like, oh, my roommate somebody broke into the house and they beat my roommate really bad and they robbed the house. My roommate's in the hospital, but I'm working at a hospital while telling them that. So they're asking me questions about what hospital and where he's at. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not sure. You know, like, but basically after that, I was like, I can't go back to normal people life. I can't.
You tried.
I tried it. Yeah. Failed.
Someone said in a few episodes ago, they knew that they were in trouble at this job they were working at because they were trying to be that person. They were trying to be that job description, you know?
Yeah.
They're like, can't fucking do this. And you're doing, I mean, you're for carpet, you've done some pretty nice modeling. You've made me want to buy some stuff.
Yes. They're buds. Like, it's like really, at the end of the day with carpet, I think they're culturally such an important thing to Baltimore. I think it's interesting. Like, it's not like you can just go to the Gucci store in Baltimore. There's like a lot of stores that don't exist because it's a poor city. Why would you put a Prada in Baltimore City? I feel like it's how a lot of people feel. I say this and then maybe there's a Prada somewhere that I don't know about, but it's not a lot of high-end fashion available to people here because, you know, again, financially it doesn't make sense. And I think culturally that actually kind of like speaks to people and they're like, oh, I'm not worthy. We're not classy. We're not bred for that. And what carpet does is I think it's helped to create an identity for a young person from Baltimore. What makes us cool, what makes us feel like individuals. And they've helped to build that identity in this city while also investing in our city. So something like carpet, it's cool. Like, it's all love. Like, that's not a job. It's like they called me the last time they called. Well, we did the one little commercial where I'm naked, a lot of it. And I was really sick when that happened. And it's the homies. So they were like, hey, do you want to be a part of this? Yes, I want to be a part of it because what you're doing is important for our community. I want to be a part of it. And then I pull up and they're like, okay, so you're going to get naked and you're going to walk around for, I remember my allergies were so bad and they rented a space. It was like surrounded, like in the woods basically. And I was like just pouring out of my nose, like butt naked, sick, for what felt like a full day. It was a couple hours.
And skateboarding is just, I didn't realize it. Like, skateboarding is just so huge. It's like skateboarding is like micro and macro. You know what I mean? There's like so much style. There's so much uniqueness, but there's millions of people around the world. Skateboarding is like just like the entry point into those different keyholes of style. It's really cool.
Yeah, I think it's such a culturally important thing. And like, I think it's interesting. When I was a kid, I was really into skate. I don't skate at all anymore. You know, like I like push around and have a skateboard, but like, you don't want to see me, I'm trash. But like it was like considered a white thing when I was a kid. And dudes would like, where I grew up wasn't, it was like, not exactly like the whitest area. And so I would get kind of like joked on, like, hey, white boy skateboards, whatever. It's like a white thing, quote unquote. And then I just feel like in the last couple of years, and especially when I moved to LA, I noticed it. And then I really noticed it in Baltimore, where it's like, it is just this wonderful, like thing that just brings everybody together. That's what it was always meant to be. It's for everybody.
Yeah.
It's like this release that if you have $100, you can go buy a skateboard and pursue a career. There's like kids who have nothing that can pursue a career in skateboarding, or at very least hang out at the local skate shop and meet some new people. And it's wonderful. For
real. Hey, Justice, thank you so much. We're going down to the line here with the timing. Thank you so much for doing this. I really, really appreciate your time and your stories. Yeah, thank you, man.
Appreciate you.
So there he was, Justice Tripp on 101 Part-Time Jobs. Brand new Soul is out now, and right now they're on tour in the UK. So go and catch them if you can. Cheers for listening. And if you are able to leave a review or leave a rating, even just subscribing is doing me and the show such a massive solid. So thank you if you're able to do that. Next this week, we've got Dizzy tomorrow and Teenage Wrist on Thursday. So make sure you tune into that. Cheers.
It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woohooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver? I kind of like the high five, but if you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. At ChumbaCasino.com, choose from hundreds of social casino style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses. So don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.